of the evidence and creating a quilt out of it. So what I will tell my colleagues is the other side gets to talk and see if they can pull a thread here and pull a thread there and see if it holds up. But the thing that I wanted to talk to you about was the Biden connection. I don't know how many times it was said by the managers that the Biden conflict of interest allegations has been debunked and has been, there's no scintilla of evidence in terms of conflicts of interest and potential wrongdoing. I know a lot about the Trump family and their dealings in Russia. I don't know anything about the Biden connection to the Ukraine. So when the managers tell me this has been looked at and debunked, by who? So that's becoming relevant because they talked about it almost 50 times that the president had no reason to believe that anything improper occurred in the Ukraine with the Bidens, and he was just out to create a political advantage. The question is, will that withstand scrutiny? The point of fact is that nobody, particularly in your business, has done much looking at what happened in the Ukraine with Hunter Biden. You're going to hear more about that, and I'll tell you more tomorrow. So I supported Mueller's ability to investigate the president's campaign and pretty much everything Trump, because I didn't know what they were up to and if they did have any connections with the Russians. 2 years later, I'm good to go. Somebody other than me looked at the Trump campaign. Nobody has looked at what's happened in the Ukraine. So in 2014, Joe Biden's given the Ukraine portfolio by President Trump. It's a notoriously corrupt place. Within a month of being given the Ukrainian portfolio, the vice president's son is hired by Burisma, one of the most corrupt companies in the Ukraine, at a fairly exorbitant salary. They also, Burisma, hires John Kerry's stepson, and on and on and on. The point is that the prosecutor, who I think was corrupt, opened up a case in May of 2014 against Burisma, raided the president's home, Burisma's president's home, in February of 2016, and 7 weeks later, was fired. In 2015, the president of Burisma, Zocheka, was named by our ambassador as somebody the Ukrainian prosecutor should look at for corruption. The person who followed the fired prosecutor dropped the case against Burisma. I don't know. Doesn't pass the smell test to me. Why are you paying Hunter Biden? You can say they're corrupt, but they're not stupid. Does it make sense to hire the son of the guy in charge of the portfolio for the American government? And from the time they raided the president's home, Joe Biden called the president of the Ukraine 4 times, got on a plane, and said, if you don't fire this guy, you don't get the $1 billion. I love Joe Biden, but I can tell you, if the name was Trump, there'd be a lot of questions asked. So what I want out of all this, I want the public to understand that the claims they're making that there's no there in Biden's, nobody's looked, somebody should. And I've looked, and I've got a lot of questions. Were they buying insurance by hiring Hunter Biden? Because they sure as hell wasn't buying expertise.
Can we ask you about the case that you heard
yes,
there? Chuck Schumer,
I will.
Chuck Schumer today said, it may have planted the first seed in their minds that perhaps the president did something very wrong here. Was that seed planted in your mind or in any other Republicans' minds?
So let's hear from what the other side says. Did they selectively take testimony of witnesses to tell a story, which I thought was well told? Will it stand up? So they got caught, is why they released the funds. The problem with cases like this is all of us are involved in this issue. So when they froze funds to the Ukraine, I was convinced by people at the Department of Defense that one of the reasons we want to take a time out is we've got a newly elected president we don't know anything about. I was told that by DOD. Now, as you fast forward, they're making the argument that Donald Trump's temporary freeze of funds caused the Ukrainian army to collapse and people die. Nothing could be further from the truth. They got more aid from the Trump administration, the Obama administration, and when you look at what people were saying on the ground, they had capability they never had before. So on September the 10th or the 11th, I called the White House and said, I'm okay with this guy. I'm going to vote with Durbin at the Appropriations Committee to make sure the aid flows for the rest of 2019. Rob Portman called the same day. It's pretty clear to me that when Rob called and I was going to join forces with Durbin, they were going to lose a vote. Now that's a theory of why the aid was released that I know about that you didn't hear. So the point is, let's see what the other side says, then we'll make our decision about what the president actually did or didn't do. Now you asked me about why I laughed, when the president's on the video. If he thought he was doing something wrong, he would probably shut up about it. In October, he's saying somebody needs to be looking at the Bidens. He told me that yesterday. The president believes that what happened in the Ukraine with the Bidens was inappropriate. Now, whether or not that will withstand scrutiny, I don't know. The president believes that the Ukraine interfered in our election. I can tell you without any doubt, it was the Russians who hacked into the DNC. It was not the Ukrainians. I cannot say that there was nobody in the Ukraine that had worked with Manafort that did a number on him. I don't know. All I can tell you is that from the president's point of view, he did nothing wrong in his mind, and end with this thought. If you're in a prior administration, does that mean no one can ever look at you? If you're going to